The movie begins in the year 1995 in Tokyo. Something concerning comes to light in the Yamaga family home. There's a speculation going around that a child, Toshio, might be facing. After he remains absent from school for a long time, the authorities take action. A group of investigators shows up at the house. It includes a woman named Yoshizaki, a police officer, and the cameraman named Yamamoto. They decide to come visit and search the entire house to find out what's happening. As they approach the house, it seems eerily quiet. Yoshizaki and the police officer knock and call out from the front door, but nobody opens. Seeing this, they decide to go in through the back door. They open the door and enter the house. It's a tense moment as they carefully explore each corner. The house is extremely dirty and trashed. There is a strong stench in the air. No human in their right mind would ever be able to live in such conditions. With great difficulty, the group makes their way to the second floor, all the while calling out to any living human that might hear their voice. They search from room to room, and finally their hearts sink when they open the bedroom closet. Yamamoto sees Yoshizaki rush out from the bedroom and fall down to her knees. After her, the police officer also exits and mentions that he would call the headquarters. As it turns out, they have found the lifeless body of a poor child who passed away several days ago. Trembling and breathing hard, Yamamoto approaches the bedroom door. There, inside the closet, unable to record any further, he stumbles away from the closet. Unbeknownst to him, a ghostly apparition of Toshio stands behind him. Trembling with fear, he quickly grabs his camera and stands up. When he records the place where the ghost stood before, it is nowhere to be found, but as he turns the camera around, he comes face to face with the poor child's ghost. The scene shifts, and we see a substitute teacher named Miss Shauno Yui. She is sitting in front of the principal who has called her in for a meeting. They talk, and it turns out that the previous teacher left the job. Thus, she is assigned to be the new homeroom teacher. Yui does not have her homeroom teacher license and only works as a substitute teacher. But despite this, the principal has chosen her for the job, placing extreme trust and belief in her abilities. The woman is quite pleased with this. As she leaves the office, she takes a moment to share the exciting news with her boyfriend Naoto about her new assignment. Amidst this joyful moment, her attention is drawn to an unusual sight in the playground. There is a yellow umbrella lying nearby, and a peculiar spiral pattern has been intricately drawn all around it in the sand. This strange phenomena sparks a sense of curiosity and intrigue within her. That night, she celebrates her new job with her boyfriend and expresses her anxiety regarding this new step in life. Naoto reassures her that she will be all right. Yui begins her first day in the classroom, where she begins to familiarize herself with her students. After introductions, she takes attendance and notices the absence of a boy named Toshio Siki. He has been conspicuously absent from school for an entire week. Concerned, she attempts to contact the Siki household, hoping to gain insight into Toshio's prolonged absence. However, her efforts are met with silence as there is no answer at the Siki residence. As she settles into her new role, she comes across the notes left behind by the previous teacher, Mr. Kanishi. In his writings, Mr. Kanishi mentions that the little boy has been absent without any word from his parents. He also mentioned his intentions to visit the Siki house at some point. This revelation raises further intrigue and unease within the new homeroom teacher, hinting at a connection between the house and the missing student. To her surprise and deepening concern, she discovers a similar spiral pattern scratched onto Toshio's desk. This eerie and inexplicable connection between the absent student and the mysterious spiral pattern adds to the growing sense of foreboding surrounding the poor woman. The scene transitions to four schoolgirls, Nanami, Aoi, Rina, and Yaoi, venturing into the infamous Yamaga house. Among the girls, Nanami looks rather scared. Rina and Aoi keep making fun of her, but Yaoi takes her side and scolds them. Contrary to their expectations, the exterior of the house appears deceptively normal and unassuming. It's bathed in natural light, giving it an inviting and seemingly innocent ambience. The gentle chirping of birds in the background adds to the illusion of a peaceful and tranquil setting, contradicting the dark rumors and haunted tales surrounding the place. Aoi's sister serves as the real estate agent responsible for handling this cursed property, which is now up for sale, providing the girls with access to the mysterious and foreboding house. Nanami decides to stand outside, unwilling to go into the creepy house. She looks visibly uncomfortable with the unfolding situation. However, despite her reservations, she feels pressured by her friend, who compels her to reluctantly join in exploring the house. Once inside, the group roams around the house and finds it rather disappointing. They think that it is just like any other normal house. Nanami's gaze drifts towards the window, and her eyes lock on a strange toy train set. Suddenly, a chilling and eerie humming sound captures her attention, resonating throughout the house. It's a haunting melody that seems to tug at her curiosity, compelling her to investigate further. As she ascends the stairs, a sense of isolation encroaches upon her. Suddenly, the front door abruptly shuts by itself, separating the group. Meanwhile, Yayoi stumbles upon a collection of unsettling kids' drawings scattered around the house. To her alarm, these drawings seem to depict horrifying events, almost as if they ominously predict future occurrences. The eerie nature of these drawings sends a shiver down their spine, hinting at something deeply disturbing within the walls of the house. Although the group is unsettled, they soon start finding these drawings funny and laugh at them. In the meantime, back upstairs, Nanami is lured into an ominous and dimly lit room. There, a brief flash of light reveals the ghostly figure of Toshio. Seeing this, Nanami is horrified. As tension mounts, she begins to palpitate. Blood begins to seep from the carpet, and the closet in the room starts to violently shake. She runs towards the door to escape this madness, but the door seems tightly shut. All of a sudden, blood flows out of the closet, creating a frightening and unsettling atmosphere. Amidst this chaos, Nanami somehow manages to escape from the room just as the door slams shut behind her. Disturbed and shaken by the eerie events she witnessed, she seeks refuge outside the room where the other girls have also come running. Instead of receiving sympathy, Nanami finds herself laughed at by her peers, who seem oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Despite feeling unnerved by the experience, Nanami chooses to leave the house to save her life. It is best to just distance herself from the uncanny occurrences within the Siki house. Driven by her sense of responsibility and concerned about Toshio's prolonged absence, Yui makes the courageous decision to visit the Siki residence. She goes there in hopes of checking on her students' well-being. As she approaches the house, her attention is drawn to a disturbing sight. A small arm dangling from an upstairs window, indicating something deeply uncanny within the premises. With growing worry, Yui attempts to ring the doorbell, seeking answers about Toshio's whereabouts. However, receiving no response, she takes it upon herself to cautiously enter the house. Feeling a sense of urgency to ensure Toshio's safety, she steps inside. There, Yui encounters Toshio's mother, Kayako Siki, but the atmosphere is anything but reassuring. Kayako exudes an eerie and unsettling aura, making Yui feel uncomfortable and apprehensive. In response to Yui's inquiries about Toshio, Kayako cryptically mentions that Toshio's father has taken him somewhere, and reassures that he'll return home soon. However, in a disconcerting turn of events, Kayako herself vanishes into thin air, leaving Yui deeply uneasy and increasingly worried about the true nature of the situation. In a spine-chilling turn of events, Yui is gripped by the haunting and eerie humming sound, compelling her to investigate further. The unnerving noise leads her upstairs, where she discovers a door tightly sealed with tape. The humming sound seems to be coming from behind it, and this greatly disturbs the poor woman. Yui quickly and anxiously peels off the tape over the sealed door and enters the room. Inside, she finds a closet tightly sealed with tape. As Yui stands there, trying to peel off the tape over the sealed closet, Kayako materializes behind her, emitting an intense and unsettling presence. How did she come inside without making a single noise? Yui gets startled and quickly apologizes for snooping around. She tells the strange woman that she was just looking for Toshio's room. Kayako, with an otherworldly calmness, informs Yui that the sealed room is not Toshio's. Yui apologizes again, feeling extremely disturbed. Despite the unsettling encounter, Kayako extends an invitation to Yui for tea downstairs. However, as they move downstairs, Kayako's behavior takes a disturbing turn. She begins humming the same haunting tune that Yui heard before. She watches in alarm as Kayako, in an almost frenzied state, aggressively scribbles into a notebook. What scares Yui more is that the same spiral that she has been seeing everywhere is now being scribbled by this scary woman. Kayako's creepy behavior intensifies the horrifying atmosphere, sending shivers down Yui's spine. Frightened and deeply disturbed by the woman's eerie behavior, Yui hastily decides to flee from the house. Back in the school, during a lively basketball game, Yayoi's attention veers away from the court as she hears peculiar noises emanating from behind a nearby curtain. Curiosity gets the better of her, and she ventures toward the source of the mysterious sounds. As she approaches the area, the atmosphere becomes increasingly eerie. The unnerving noises amplify, sending shivers down her spine. She sees an abandoned piano nearby. As she turns around, she suddenly senses an unearthly presence and feels an inexplicable disturbance. Toshio's ghostly hands grab hold of her leg, startling her immensely. Frightened and caught off guard, Yayoi swiftly retreats in a rush of panic, seeking refuge in the safety of the nurse's office. Her nerves are rattled, and she trembles with fear as she tries to make sense of the unnerving encounter she just experienced. Inside the office, she calls out to the nurse, but no one seems to be around. Seeking solace, Yue settles into an empty bed in the nurse's office, hoping to calm her frayed nerves. However, her sense of unease intensifies when she discovers a crumpled picture hidden underneath the sheets. It is one of the drawings that she came across back in the Siki house. While trying to process the startling discovery, a strange movement beneath the sheets catches her attention. Toshio's ghostly presence manifests before her, sending a chill down her spine and further plunging her into the disconcerting and surreal atmosphere. She screams, and all of a sudden disappears into thin air without a trace. Returning from her uncanny visit to the Siki house, Yui is feeling perturbed by the experience and decides to confide in the principal about her concerns. Sensing that something was amiss during her visit, she requests a meeting with the previous teacher, Mr. Kanishi, hoping to gain insight regarding her apprehensions. However, to her surprise, the principal delivers distressing news. Mr. Kanishi has tragically passed away. The principal received this news just this morning. Undeterred by this revelation, Yui decides to examine Mr. Kanishi's notes, seeking any clues that might shed light on the disturbing events. As she peruses through his writings, she discovers detailed accounts of Mr. Kanishi's own eerie encounters with Kayako, the chilling similarities between their experiences, and the unshakable sense of foreboding that lingered after his visit to the Siki house. The notes end abruptly after Mr. Kanishi mentions his intention to revisit the house, leaving Yui with an incomplete understanding of the previous teacher's mysterious encounters. While examining Mr. Kanishi's notebook, Yui discovers an eerily recurring pattern. The same spiral pattern is drawn repeatedly throughout its pages. Back home, Yui is troubled by this strange discovery and tries to comprehend the significance of this repeated symbol. The following day, during one of her classes, Yui shockingly sees Toshio, the absent student. He is seated in his usual place. His presence appears vividly real to her, accompanied by an eerie humming sound that resonates within the classroom. Reacting to this peculiar sight, Yui feels a mix of concern and alarm. She intervenes, urging Toshio to stop, but he does not. In a moment of urgency, she reaches out and attempts to restrain Toshio by grabbing his arm, only to realize that there was no physical presence there. Toshio was never truly present in the classroom. After the unsettling visit to the haunted Yamaga house, things take a disturbing turn for Nanami and Aoi. They visit Rina at her home, only to discover her in a highly distressed state. She is isolated and secluded within her room, withdrawn from the world. As they enter, they find the poor girl cowering in fear, hiding under a desk. She expresses about the imminent arrival of the white child, referring to Toshio. A haunting moment unfolds as several pieces of tape inexplicably begin to peel off by themselves, contributing to the ominous atmosphere. Adding to the chilling aura, a ghostly hand emerges from a drawer. In a startling turn of events, Toshio's spectral presence suddenly manifests within one of the cabinets. The encounter leaves Nanami, Aoi, and Rina engulfed in an overwhelming sense of fear and foreboding. Rina grabs Aoi in a plea for help and says that the white child's curse will take her life. Hearing this, Aoi gives her a charm necklace before she and Nanami run out of the house. Sometime later, we see Rina in the kitchen trying to pour some milk for herself. As she pours it in a milk pan, the liquid spills out as blood. Startled, she throws it on the floor, and a puddle of blood forms there. To her horror, she sees the ghost of Toshio clinging to her in the reflection of the blood puddle on the floor. All of a sudden, the tea kettle on the stovetop bursts and scalds her face. This was eerily predicted earlier in one of the pictures. She falls on her knees in front of the fridge, screaming in pain. Just then, the fridge opens and Rina is abruptly seized by the ghostly presence of Toshio, disappearing into the refrigerator. On the other side, Yui's boyfriend, Naoto, is engrossed in his work, diligently crafting a movie script in the comfort of their apartment. However, having interacted with Yui, who had visited the cursed house, Naoto finds himself unwittingly affected by the malevolent forces surrounding the curse. As he goes to fetch himself a cup of tea, Naoto is suddenly disturbed by unusual sounds emanating from the microwave. The sounds resemble the distressed noises of a struggling cat. Alarmed, he promptly investigates, but upon opening the microwave, he finds nothing inside. Meanwhile, in school, Yui is feeling fatigued. She spends her time grading papers. In the background, her colleagues gradually exit the room, leaving her alone. As she battles sleepiness, Yui finds herself inadvertently drawing spirals on the papers. She dozes off momentarily, but is suddenly awakened by the sound of her name being called out by Toshio. Startled, she turns around, but is unable to find him. Soon after, she notices Kayako Siki walking through the hallway, prompting Yui to follow her. Curiosity leads Yui into an empty classroom, where she spots Kayako's journal lying on one of the desks. Alone in the dimly lit room, she feels compelled to peruse the journal, perhaps seeking answers or insight into the mysterious occurrences surrounding the Siki household. Later, back at home, Naoto arrives to find Yui in a peculiar state. She is staring blankly out the window without responding to him. He observes her tracing the spiral pattern with her finger on the window. She appears to be in a trance. Concerned for her well-being, Naoto tends to Yui, helping her into bed as she loses consciousness. Worried and trying to comprehend what might be affecting her, he searches through her bag and discovers Kayako's diary tucked inside. Leafing through the pages, Naoto reads several entries penned by Kayako, expressing her deep longing and desperation to conceive a child. The diary reveals Kayako's emotional turmoil, attributing her inability to have a child to her husband Takio's frequent business trips, which keep him away from home. In subsequent entries within Kayako's journal, her words convey an escalating sense of desperation, reflecting her deep desire to conceive a child. The entries depict her growing willingness to do whatever it takes to fulfill her longing for motherhood. In one entry, Kayako recounts an incident during Takio's absence when a mysterious boy appeared and referred to her as mother. She expresses certainty that her pregnancy began after this odd encounter. She says how her husband is unaware of this, and he won't know till the day he passes away. As the man is reading, we see Kayako's ghostly presence standing just behind him. Just then, the journal's pages begin to move all on their own. We then see Kayako's eyes encircled by spirals on one of the pages, watching Naoto. Meanwhile, on the other side, Aoi questions her sister Miwa about the uncanny events surrounding the cursed house. She has finally come to her senses and thinks that something isn't right. Better late than never. However, Miwa remains tight-lipped and refuses to divulge any details to Aoi, leaving her in a state of unease and confusion. Seeking a moment to herself, Aoi steps into the shower, contemplating the potential repercussions of entering the cursed house. While looking into the mirror, she experiences a moment of alarm when she imagines seeing Toshio's hand pulling on her lower jaw. Startled by Aoi's sudden screams from the bathroom, Miwa rushes in to check on her, concerned about her well-being. There, she is horrified to see blood in the sink, and poor Aoi's lower jaw, which has been brutally torn, and lies on the shower floor. These gruesome happenings of Aoi, Yaoi, and Rina were all predicted on the drawings presumably made by Toshio. The next day, we see Nanami haunted by the ghosts of her deceased friends while on a train. This encounter fills her with terror. She tries running away, but is tragically teleported back inside the cursed house. There she is violently thrashed around and dragged away by unseen forces. Sadly, she too meets her ultimately grim end in a mysterious way. Meanwhile, amid this series of horrifying occurrences, Aoi's sister proceeds to sell the haunted house to a couple named Takio and Kayako Siki. The couple is well aware of the house's history, yet they still want to rent it. Naoto is driven by a desire to uncover more about the eerie occurrences and the cursed fate that befell his girlfriend. He takes the initiative to investigate the cursed house and approaches Miwa's husband Kyosuke, seeking information about the mysterious family and the house's history. Initially, Kyosuke refrains from saying anything, but after seeing the poor man's desperation, he reveals the secrets. During their conversation, Kyosuke reassures Naoto that there's nothing wrong with the Siki family, but rather the house itself is haunted. Kyosuke reveals a distressing detail, mentioning a tragic incident that occurred 19 years ago, when a child was found deceased inside the house. This incident is what happened at the beginning of the movie. 10 years after this event, Kyosuke's wife Miwa and her sister Aoi entered the house and met an unexplained and tragic demise. This revelation gives a proper timeline between the two narratives unfolding throughout the movie. First, the poor child passed away. A decade later, the group of girls that went inside that house were haunted, and almost another decade after that, the current events occurred. The story revolves around 3 decades of hauntings. Before Naoto departs, Kyosuke warns him to be careful. Naoto then heads to a library to research on the historical incident related to the house. His investigation leads him to discover that 19 years ago, an 8-year-old boy named Toshio Yamaga was tragically found inside the house. Upon learning about this tragic event, Naoto experiences a sense of foreboding. He realizes that he also might be in danger because he had also decided to explore the cursed house. Returning to the apartment, Naoto finds Yui asleep in her bed. There's a peculiar movement underneath the sheets, stirring his concern. He attempts to wake Yui, yet she remains asleep. As he examines a photograph of Toshio Yamaga and Toshio Siki, he has a spine-chilling realization. They are the same person. However, Nayato's quest for understanding takes a harrowing turn. Just then, the ghostly hand of Kayako creeps up on him from behind and violently snaps his neck. Poor Nayato's life is extinguished in a horrifying manner. Before he passes away, he sees the ghost of Toshio standing just before him. On the other side, Yui finally wakes up. She slowly walks out and finds the horrid lifeless body of her poor boyfriend. Having recuperated from the disturbing events, Yui feels compelled to seek justice and closure. Determined, she returns to the haunting Seki household, hoping to unravel the mysteries lurking within its walls. With resolve, she opens the sealed closet, unveiling a box filled with tapes and picture books chronicling the lives of the ill-fated Seki family. She opens the family picture book and dreadfully watches the scratched pictures. Feeling creeped out, she tosses it aside and picks up the tapes. As she watches the tapes, a startling revelation emerges. Kayako and Takeo appeared to be a loving and affectionate couple, especially with the arrival of their newborn son Toshio. However, as Toshio grew older, there were indications that he didn't share a close or positive relationship with his father Takeo. Yui finds an isolated videotape inside of an envelope, which reveals how Kayako became pregnant. Kayako's pregnancy was not a result of her union with Takeo, but rather a chilling encounter with a spirit of Toshio Yamaga. This revelation shakes Yui to her core. In a haunting series of visions, Yui witnesses the grim past unfold. Takeo finds out that Toshio is not his son, and then confronts Kayako about it. The woman madly laughs and taunts the man. This angers him, and he violently takes out the woman. As Kayako passes away, we see little Toshio calling out to his mother. He stands on the side hugging a cat, but the vision ends before Yui can see what happens next. These chilling scenes carve themselves into Yui's mind. Yui goes back into the upstairs closet and searches the attic where she finds Kayako's rotting lifeless body. All of a sudden, her eyes snap open. To her horror, Kayako's ghostly form begins to move and crawl towards her. She tries to flee, but falls down the stairs in her haste. There she sees the peaceful Toshio calling her teacher. She pleads with him to save her, but he soon disappears. In a harrowing confrontation, Yui finds herself cornered by both Kayako and the vengeful spirit of Toshio, who calls her as mother as she tries to flee. Before she is attacked, an ear-splitting scream escapes her mouth and the scene cuts. Suddenly, Yui jolts awake, finding herself back in her apartment. However, the terror is far from over. In a bone-chilling twist, she encounters the ghostly figure of Naoto, who is advancing toward her with his lifeless head twisted at an unnatural angle. At the same time, Toshio's ominous presence sits hauntingly on the kitchen table. The movie ends with Yui's fate hanging in suspense, leaving her ultimate outcome shrouded in uncertainty.